This is sort of a common view that if you ask someone what science is trying to do, they'll usually say it's trying to give a true or right description of the world, you see. But what does science come up with? It comes up with a good many theories, some of them such that they conflict, and that if either is true, then the other is, which is a very strange situation. I mean, the Earth is in motion, the Earth is at rest. The geocentric hypothesis and the heliocentric hypothesis are equally true. You can't say that one is right and one is wrong. If one of them is good, so is the other one. It's just a different way of describing things. So that how can there be the world if there are all these, not only a multiplicity of true descriptions, but descriptions that are at odds with one another? So there can't be any such thing as the world. Well, shall we say then that there are many worlds? Well, this seems a little extravagant. And also it seems to me to, in a sense, multiply the error of supposing that the relationship between a description, a scientific theory, is a relation of correspondence to something out there. So that if you have many diverse descriptions which are right, then you must have something for them to correspond to. I think that notion of correspondence is a very vicious one, which has to be dropped. But where does that leave us if we can't say consistently there's such a thing as the world, and we can't say, don't want to say that there are many different worlds? Well, the obvious answer is that there is no such thing as the world. But it's not true or false. It doesn't have truth values. And so we need a more general concept than truth, which we might call rightness, which has several functions. In the first place, even in science and even in verbal description, truth is not the sole and all-inclusive goal. If the goal of science was simply to get true descriptions, all you'd have to do is set all the calculators in the world running and getting millions of sums. 2 plus 2 is 4, 2 plus 3 is so on. All of these would be true. We'd have millions of truths, but it wouldn't matter. The truth, if I ask you whether it's snowing outside and you say 2 plus 2 is 4, you've given a true answer, but it's not the right answer. It's not any good. There are a lot of things involved here beyond truth, such as relevance and power of organization, etc., which we can't go in. I think that's a misconception. I think that now we have to regard philosophy as the investigation of understanding, not of establishing truths, but of grasping and of organizing things and of gaining insights by perceiving important distinctions and relations. It is true that I stress the kinship between the sciences and the arts. It is not true, however, that I maintain that a distinction between the sciences and the arts must go. Quite the contrary. What I am saying is that most of the distinctions that have been drawn are wrong, and that we have first to study the likenesses between the sciences and the arts, and then, in terms of further investigation, examine what are the genuine and important differences between the two. So, in fact, I'm sure that it's not the case that rightness in art can be identified with beauty, because it seems to me ridiculous to call some of the greatest works of art beautiful or pleasant or anything of the sort. I mean, they're very harrowing very often. And truth is not the only concept that needs to be revised or replaced. Certainty. I mean, what is certainty? Is it a feeling of conviction? or is it something that never can? I mean, if you start analyzing the notion of certainty, you see it's utterly unacceptable. It has to drop out. Something else has to replace it. And even knowledge, because knowledge means certainty of truth, apparently. And therefore, that's an incomprehensible notion. I think we have to replace knowledge by understanding. And whereas philosophy in its traditional function is often thought of as starting from elementary certain truths, they're absolutely certain, and then deriving a lot of others that are equally certain. I think that's a misconception. I think that now we have to regard philosophy as the investigation of understanding, not of establishing truths, but of grasping and of organizing things and of gaining insights by perceiving important distinctions and relations, as we can do if we have a general theory of symbols to work with.
There is an important convergence between what you are just now saying and the traditional continental hermeneutical philosophy. Would you also see a convergence between this post-analytical American philosophy represented by a person like you and the traditional hermeneutic philosophy in Europe?
I rather resist that.